They came for her at night. Blue lights tore through the quiet neighborhood as police cars swarmed the driveway of Mrs. Evelyn Hart's modest bungalow. A former school principal known for her strict discipline and unwavering honesty, she stood barefoot in her living room, trembling, as detectives read out charges of embezzlement and conspiracy. Her mind spun. She hadn't touched a single coin, hadn't even known money was missing. Yet here she was, accused of orchestrating a fraud that could ruin her life. And in the shadows of her crumbling world, someone else had already decided she would not go down for a crime she never committed. Kindly subscribe to the channel for more chilling crimes that reveals truth and lessons, because in the end there is something to learn. Evelyn Hart had been a principal for over 20 years, remembered for her insistence on fairness. She'd crossed powerful colleagues before, teachers and administrators who resented her sharp eye and refusal to bend rules. When she retired, she thought she'd left all that behind. She took up a quiet job at a growing tech company as a compliance officer, far from the chaos of school politics. But some enemies never really go away. Behind closed doors, a group of her former colleagues, those she'd exposed for manipulating school funds years ago, had found a way to reach her again. Using falsified documents, planted evidence, and doctored CCTV footage, they painted Evelyn as part of a scheme to funnel money out of her new company. The timing was perfect. The evidence airtight. Or so they thought. In the ICT department of that very company worked a quiet, almost invisible technician named Daniel. He was the kind of man no one paid attention to, polite, efficient, always tucked behind screens monitoring security footage. To his co-workers, he was just the CCTV guy. But Daniel was no ordinary technician. Daniel Foster was, in fact, the new CEO of the company. Months before, he had chosen to step into disguise, working under the radar to understand his employees from the ground up. He wanted to see who was loyal, who was corrupt, and who could be trusted when no one thought he was watching. When Evelyn joined the company, Daniel immediately recognized her name. She had once been his school principal, the woman who had defended him when he was falsely accused of cheating in his final exams. That act had saved his scholarship, and by extension, his entire future. He owed her everything. And now, as fate circled back, it was his turn to save her. The night Evelyn was arrested, Daniel combed through hours of CCTV recordings. The footage clearly showed Evelyn accessing restricted servers, plugging in a USB, and leaving with files that connected her to missing funds. It was perfect, too perfect. He froze the footage. Zoomed in. Looked again. Something didn't add up. The woman in the video wore Evelyn's coat, walked with Evelyn's height, and entered the room with her keycard. But Daniel's trained eye spotted a single mistake. The woman's reflection in the glass wall revealed a different face, blurred but different. The footage had been spliced. A frame overlap that almost no one would notice. Almost. Daniel realized at that moment, Evelyn had been framed. From that night forward, Daniel lived two lives. By day, he was the mild ICT worker fixing broken monitors. By night, he dug deeper, piecing together the plot against Evelyn. He hacked into internal systems, traced the falsified access logs, and discovered emails hidden in encrypted folders. Each clue pointed back to a chilling truth: this was no random setup. Evelyn's enemies from her past had followed her here, working with insiders to destroy her reputation once and for all. The deeper Daniel went, the more dangerous it became. Someone inside the company was watching the watchers. On 2 occasions, he found his systems tampered with. Anonymous threats landed in his inbox: stay out of it, or you'll join her. But Daniel was not the kind of man to back down, not when Evelyn's life was on the line. One evening, while cross-checking time stamps, Daniel discovered something that shook him. One of the insiders framing Evelyn wasn't just an employee. It was someone Evelyn considered a friend. Her closest colleague at the company, Amelia Gray. Amelia was the one Evelyn confided in about her struggles. Amelia was the one who brought her tea when she looked stressed. And Amelia was the one who had vouched for Evelyn when management questioned her loyalty. Yet, in the files Daniel uncovered, Amelia's digital fingerprints were everywhere. Emails linking her to Evelyn's old enemies. Transfer records with Amelia's login credentials. And worse, Amelia was the one who planted Evelyn's fingerprints on a discarded USB drive. But why? Why would Amelia betray her so coldly? Evelyn now sat in a cold interrogation room, hours away from being charged. The press was already circling, eager to tear down the reputation of the once beloved principal. Her hands shook as she signed statement after statement, insisting on her innocence. Meanwhile, Daniel knew he couldn't reveal himself yet. If he exposed that he was the CEO too soon, the culprits would scatter, and Evelyn's name would still be stained. He had to let the game play out, while secretly gathering enough evidence to flip the case wide open. The clock was ticking. That night, Daniel received a message that made his blood run cold. A video file. It showed Evelyn, tied to a chair, terrified, pleading for her life. But Evelyn was already in custody. So who was the woman in the video? And if it wasn't her, then who exactly was being held captive? The video replayed again and again on Daniel's screen. A woman tied to a chair. Her face bruised, lips trembling. The camera angle was crude, like someone wanted him to see her suffering. She looked exactly like Evelyn Hart, the same short haircut, the same lines of age across her forehead. But there was one problem. Evelyn was already in police custody. Daniel leaned closer. A detail caught his eye: the woman had a tiny scar above her left eyebrow. Evelyn didn't. Whoever this was, she was no principal. She was a double. But why stage such a thing? Who would go so far as to kidnap a lookalike? The answer was clear: to make Evelyn look guilty beyond doubt. If the courts didn't destroy her, the public surely would. The following morning, news outlets aired a leaked clip of the hostage video. Headlines screamed, "Former principal linked to organized crime syndicate." Evelyn sat in a holding cell, watching the footage in horror, unable to comprehend how the world had turned against her so quickly. Meanwhile, Daniel, still hidden in his ICT disguise, began tracing the file's origin. His investigation led him to a secret server buried under multiple encryption layers. Only a handful of high-level staff had the clearance to access it. And at the top of that list was Amelia Gray, Evelyn's so-called friend. The betrayal cut deep, even for Daniel. He thought of Evelyn, sitting in a cell, believing Amelia might be her only ally, when in truth, Amelia was tightening the noose around her neck. Daniel decided to act. He intercepted one of Amelia's encrypted messages and tracked her to a deserted car park late at night. From a distance, he watched as she handed over a flash drive to two men in black suits, faces he recognized from the old school board Evelyn once battled years ago. They were her enemies from the past, still hungry for revenge. "Make sure it leaks tomorrow," Amelia said, her voice sharp, confident. "By then, she'll be finished. No one will believe a word that woman says." Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to step out, to confront her. But he knew timing was everything. One wrong move, and the entire plan to save Evelyn would collapse. Instead, he pulled out his phone and captured the exchange on video. Evidence. The kind Evelyn desperately needed. Back in the police station, Evelyn broke down. For the first time in her life, she felt completely powerless. The justice system she had once believed in was now the very machine grinding her into dust. "Please," she whispered to the detective across the table. "I didn't do any of this." The detective stared back coldly. "The evidence says otherwise." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. She thought of the students she once protected, the young lives she helped shape. Was this how her story would end, in disgrace, branded a criminal, abandoned by the very society she had served? But somewhere out there, in the silence of servers and hidden cameras, Daniel was still fighting for her. Daniel knew he couldn't keep his disguise forever. But he also knew revealing himself as the CEO too soon would destroy his cover and possibly alert Amelia. He had to play a dangerous game, outsmart them all without exposing his hand. That night, he edited together the footage he had of Amelia's betrayal. But just as he was about to send it to the authorities, a warning popped up on his screen. "We know who you are." Daniel froze. Who sent that? How much did they know? His heart pounded. The shadows he was fighting weren't just targeting Evelyn anymore. They were coming for him. Still shaken, Daniel replayed the hostage video. This time, he slowed it down frame by frame. In the corner of the shot, half hidden by the edge of the lens, he saw something chilling, Amelia's reflection. It wasn't just that Amelia was betraying Evelyn. She was running the entire operation. Now Daniel faced an impossible choice. If he exposed Amelia immediately, Evelyn might be cleared, but the shadowy men working with her could vanish before being caught. The real masterminds would remain free. If he stayed quiet, Amelia would continue her scheme, and Evelyn's life would hang by a thread. Time was slipping away. Evelyn's trial was set to begin in just 3 days. The next morning, Daniel received another package. No name. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. It showed him, not as Daniel the ICT technician, but as Daniel Foster, the CEO of the company. The message scrawled across it in red ink. "Stay out, or you're next." The photograph lay on Daniel's desk, the red ink screaming louder than any voice. They knew. His disguise as the quiet ICT technician was finished. Whoever sent the photo wanted him rattled, maybe even silenced. But Daniel Foster wasn't the timid boy Evelyn had once defended in school. He was now a man with power, a CEO with resources, and he owed her too much to back down. If they wanted him exposed, so be it. The next morning, Daniel walked into the company boardroom, not as the CCTV man, but as the CEO. Gasps echoed around the table as his employees realized who he truly was. He looked directly at Amelia. Her face remained calm, too calm. "Well," she said with a smile, "the king has finally stepped out of the shadows." "You framed an innocent woman," Daniel shot back, his voice steady. "And I have proof." He played the recordings, Amelia handing over the flash drive, her reflection in the hostage video, and the server logs tying her to the scheme. The room fell silent. But Amelia only laughed. "You think this ends with me? Daniel, you're playing against people far bigger than you. If I fall, others will rise. And when they do, not even you will be able to save her." Her words hung like poison in the air. Amelia was right. As Daniel dug deeper, he uncovered names, wealthy board members from Evelyn's old school district, men who had siphoned funds for years and feared exposure. Evelyn had been their biggest threat. They had never forgiven her for catching them once. Now, they were determined to erase her reputation forever. Amelia was merely their knife. But knives can cut both ways. On the eve of Evelyn's trial, Daniel made his boldest move. Using his CEO authority, he forced open the shadow server and leaked its contents, emails, bank transfers, blackmail threats, to the authorities and the press. At the same time, he sent a secret team to the warehouse where the hostage double was being held. They found her barely conscious, terrified but alive. She was a struggling actress, paid to impersonate Evelyn, then abandoned when she refused to continue. Her testimony became the final nail in the coffin against Amelia and the syndicate. The day Evelyn's trial began, the prosecution entered with stacks of evidence. But before proceedings could start, Daniel strode into the courtroom, this time openly as CEO, and handed over a thick file of counter-evidence. Gasps filled the room as the truth unraveled. Emails tying Amelia and her allies to the false charges. The doctored CCTV exposed. The hostage double testifying that she was forced into the role. And finally, Daniel playing the recording of Amelia's late-night deal in the car park. Amelia's face drained of color as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. For Evelyn, it was more than vindication, it was survival. After the trial, Evelyn stepped outside into the sunlight, free at last. Reporters crowded around, cameras flashing. But all she could see was Daniel, waiting quietly by the steps. "You," she whispered, recognition flooding her eyes. "You were the boy. The one who nearly lost everything." Daniel smiled softly. "And you were the one who stood up for me when no one else would. Consider this me paying back a debt." Tears welled in Evelyn's eyes as she embraced him. "You didn't just save me, Daniel. You saved my faith in people." Within weeks, the syndicate was dismantled, Amelia sentenced, and Evelyn's name cleared. But Daniel knew one thing: corruption never truly dies. It hides, waits, and strikes again when least expected. Still, the message was clear. For every shadow that schemes in silence, there must always be a hidden eye watching, ready to protect the innocent when the world turns against them. The story of Evelyn Hart and Daniel Foster reminds us of two truths. First, betrayal often comes from those closest, but so does redemption. Second, one act of courage, whether defending a student years ago or standing against corruption today, can ripple across lifetimes. Because in the end, justice isn't just about law. It's about loyalty, courage, and the unbreakable bond between those who choose to do what's right.